A friend of this radio station, ESPN's own DJ Bien-Aime, who was just looking spiffy on the 4-letter.
Was he wearing that suit at training camp?
He was not wearing a suit at training camp, so he's got a suit in his car. He's ready to go. But he was on the Mina Kimes show featuring Lenny, a good football podcast if you are an NFL fan. And Mina Kimes asked him for his prediction, who's going to win the AFC South?
So it sounds to me like you are going Texans, Colts, Jags, Titans. You were very high in the Titans last year. Do you remember that?
I was. I do remember that. I was very high on, I was high on Mike Vrabel. His old line was just bad. So I think, I think I haven't done my research. I think the Colts end up winning the division. One of my biggest things is the Texans schedule scares me. It scares me.
DJ.
The Texans schedule, it scares me.
Wow, let it not be said that you were biased.
Yeah, that's
what a shocking pick.
Yeah, I think the Colts end up winning because I like the schedule. I like the pieces that they have. I think AR is going to take, if he stays healthy, he's going to take, a massive. But I think the Texans make the playoffs. I think get one of the wild card spots.
DJ Bien-Aime is picking the Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC South. That July 17th, 2024. Everyone's bookmarking it. He's getting crushed by Texans Twitter.
Yeah, he probably is.
So I'll say this about Anthony Richardson. There is definitely some real potential there. He has to stay healthy. I don't know if he ever will stay healthy, but he's got a cannon for an arm, and he's super fast. He's the exact quarterback that you want to play with in a Madden game.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with him about the schedule, and Patrick64228 on our Twitch says, have you seen the Astros August schedule? That scares me. The Texans have the toughest schedule in the NFL outside of the AFC North. There are 3 AFC North teams in front of them, and then it's the Texans. They are number 4 across all teams in the league. They go up against a lot of good quarterbacks, and they don't have the best secondary. And on top of that, some of the teams that they're going up against have really good defenses as well. It is a much tougher schedule than it was last year. So I don't think this is a crazy take by any means, but people are mad at DJ. I'm happy with DJ. We tried to get Skip Bayless to replace Joe when he was on vacation for a month. Sorry about that, Joe.
I do feel like Skip Bayless would have picked the Titans to win the division. I feel like he would go in the extra mile.
Man, I don't know
if he was going to do
that.
This is where DJ is right. Let's just look at the Texans and the Colts have a bye week 14. The Texans' final 4 games are the Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, Titans. The Colts' final 4 games are the Broncos, the Titans, the Giants, the Jaguars.
Cupcake buffet.
So you're playing a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. You're playing Will Levis. You're playing Daniel Jones or Drew Lock. And you're playing Trevor Lawrence in the Jags. That's your final 4 games if you're the Colts. My biggest pushback is that Anthony Richardson started 4 games last year. He played 1 game, in which he played 4 quarters. I just can't buy into someone like that. You can sell me on the rest of the Colts. I don't believe in Joe Flacco. His interception percentage was the highest in the league last year. If he has to come in and play quarterback for them this year, I think last year's magic will quickly fall off, and they'll be finding a 3rd or 4th quarterback if Richardson gets hurt. So I can't buy into the Colts because I just don't believe that Richardson's going to stay healthy. I'm still more in on Jacksonville, to be honest.
Well, look, I think you're rolling dice when you're predicting health. Richardson did get hurt this past season, and that should be concerning because of the way that he plays. But, I think Richardson's clearly better than Bryce Young based off of those 4 games.
Big time.
I just think he belongs in the NFL. The size is a really important thing here. And I think the Colts have a really good head coach, and Shane Steichen. I feel like they will be able to win with Joe Flacco under center if he has to step in. Flacco's better than Gardner Minshew was last year. And the Colts, despite Gardner Minshew being awful on that Saturday game, came a 4th and short away from potentially beating the Texans, eliminating them from the playoffs, winning the AFC South themselves. They were really, really close to making that happen. So with that in mind, I don't think what he's saying is crazy. I feel like there are some legitimate reasons for it. I think last year when he picked the Titans, that was effing crazy because they were so bad the second half of the year. And I remember when he came in on my show, I told him, I was like, come on, man. And he was like, oh, you're just biased against the Titans, which is true. Their fan base are a bunch of inbred rednecks.
Yes.
Okay?
Fact.
They eat squirrel on a stick. That's fine. Like, to each their own. But those people don't know anything about football. I hate their fan base. The team itself collapsed down the stretch the year before this past season. There was no reason to pick them. The Colts this year totally makes sense. They have an easier schedule than the Houston Texans. Texans have one of the toughest in the league. So I think that's a totally fair prediction to make for the AFC South. And I'm happy that someone finally had the balls to say that the Texans are not going to go 17-0.
Look, there's a lot of times where people get upset about, we hear it sometimes on Twitch specifically, but sometimes you do need someone that is an outsider to kind of reset reality. DJ kind of is still. He's been here for 2 years. We covered the Jets before that. Went to Louisville. He's not a Houston guy, so he has a much more objective perspective on the Houston Texans than most in the media.
Some people get really mad, though, about the whole not being from Houston covering the Texans thing.
For sure, but sometimes it's a good thing.
I feel like for the most part, it is always a good thing to be objective in your analysis. I understand some people want that fanboy coverage. Well, what happens when the fanboy coverage is wrong? Like, how do you respond to that? Do you just check out entirely? And that's why I do call this town from time to time a bandwagon sports town. It is. I don't see anything wrong with that. But there's a weird amount of fans of the teams here that only want you to kiss their ass. I would say the Twitch is generally like that for the Houston Astros. Understandably so. I mean, they've been to 7 straight ALCS, but there's others who are like that for the Houston Texans too.
For sure.
I think, you look at them, there are lots of questions about them going into the year, and they have a very difficult schedule. And, okay, you really think it's that crazy that they don't end up winning the division this year or that they have a sub-500 year? Like, we like C.J. Stroud. We like D'Amico Ryans. It's been 1 year. And their secondary, their linebackers, there's questions there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, it's not unrealistic to say the Texans are going to miss the playoffs this year. I'm just not confident that in Anthony Richardson staying healthy. If he could have just played played all those games and then had the season-ending injury, I might feel differently. It's just the fact that every single game besides one, he didn't finish the game. Like, it's a huge red flag. That's not something we've seen really ever that I can think of, where a quarterback gets that hurt that frequently, where they have to miss the end of games. So that's why I can't go all the way there with the Colts. But if he stays healthy, he looks like he can be an awesome, dynamic quarterback. So they are a threat for sure.